Penn State men's hockey goes to Ohio State no, right? Ohio State? No, I'm sorry, Minnesota. I had Ohio State on the mind because of, I don't know why they were on the mind. Penn State goes to Minnesota to play in the first round of the Big Ten tournament this weekend. Let me just ask the obvious, or let's get the elephant out of the room. If Penn State doesn't win this weekend, will this be the last time we see Guy Gadowsky as the head coach of Penn State hockey?
No,
Okay, why?
no. Um, because I like him. um,
It's a fair answer.
um, I'll give you a long but short list. Because I think I like him because he's one of my favorite coaches. He's honest. He's a little more cliche this year because I think they're struggling, but he doesn't know an answer. He's never afraid to answer a question, which I like. I respect him and what he does for the program because I saw him working with the Lions, the Roar Zone kids last year at the sled hockey game, down behind the plexiglass, working on little dance moves as they were celebrating the thing. No other coach is going to do that here. Like they're just not. And he was genuine about it. This, I think, and you know more hockey than me, so you can reel me in from this one. I think this is the toughest job in the Big Ten, and he's done a good job with it. They were one win from the Frozen Four last year. There, since Notre Dame joined the conference in 2018, they're averaging a 4.28 finish, so fourth in the conference. They finished in first place in 2020, probably should have advanced. Won the tournament in 2016. No, I think if next year they struggle like they've struggled this year because they felt a little more not as consistently competitive this year as they've been in some past years. I think if next year's that way, then maybe so. But I think this year, less than a full calendar year removed from going into overtime to reach the Frozen Four, it would be too soon.
Yeah, here's how I feel about it.
Oh, that's a yes, but here's how
It's
I
not a
feel about it
yes,
is yes, but.
it is a yes in it is a yes. I feel anxious about it. I think would be the best way to say it. And I think I it's interesting to hear you say it's the toughest job in the Big Ten because I I don't feel like that's the right answer, and but I can't think of a tougher job in the Big Ten. Every other school in the Big Ten has credibility or a national standing or a pipeline of players coming in more so than Penn State was. And the reason why I feel anxious about it is two things. Number one, they in my opinion have underachieved. I think they should have been a tournament team this year, regardless of the kind of the scoring they lost, particularly the goaltending situation dropping off, going from decent to I think either worst or I think it was second worst in the country when I looked up their save percentage earlier. That surprised me. But I think logic and reason is also why I can not feel anxious about it. And it's what you said there of they were one goal away from the Frozen Four last year. It's not like Guy Gadowsky hasn't won at Penn State. It's not like this is just a bad year. It's just it is what is frustrating about it being, and this goes back to the best job / worst job in the Big Ten, the it's never it's we still haven't quite gotten what we thought Penn State hockey was going to be, and what's the common factor, Guy Gadowsky, and I that's why I feel anxious about it. I think he will come back. I think it's too reactionary, kind of like what you're getting at, in terms of performance and success. He's shown that he can win. I think the one thing that irks or concerns me is the not misses, but the lack of all of the other Big Ten schools for the most part, really all of the other Big Ten schools, maybe Ohio State, not so much, are pumping out NHLers pretty frequently. And Penn State has had three, I believe: Casey Bailey, Brandon Bureau, and there's one more, and I'm blanking on what his name is off the top of my head. And I think that's kind of goes into the, like, we thought that this was going to go slightly differently, and maybe it's just our expectations collectively were off. And so that's why I feel anxious about this could be That's why I asked the question, because I think it's not impossible to think that it could happen. Do I think it should happen? No. I think that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and I think the pipe. So for where I'm at with worst, toughest job is right location. Like the national teams, you can throw a stone and hit Michigan, Michigan State, Notre Dame, Chicago's there. Like it's just not as easy to get to. Not that it's hard anymore, but it's just there's not that pipeline. They haven't done as much. They lost a couple key recruits, one or two that would have been in the state that maybe would have helped. So
Well,
I think that's go ahead.
let's stop there. I mean, the Logan Cooley thing is it's the elephant in the room. Like if 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 Penn State, no discredit to anybody that covers the team, yourself included, Steve. If Penn State had more investment, not Penn State, if there was more media investment on Penn State hockey, the way that Minnesota or Michigan primarily have it, that that question not being answered of why he didn't come to Penn State when he was a Pennsylvania boy is the most baffling, because he was it was very well known in hockey circles that he was going to be the premier Pennsylvania player for
And they
quite
had
some
a
time.
good, my understanding, good offer, right? Like so, in terms of him getting there. So I think, and so maybe that's toughest job, right? Maybe there wasn't people to play with. Maybe there's not enough coverage for people to see me and know me, although I think the hockey insiders know it. I think the anxious piece for me, and I didn't pull the numbers. I had them last week too. Had them last week. In terms of NHL draft picks on rosters, right? Penn State's at the bottom. Penn State and Ohio State, and that's probably not going to change. So I think that's the challenge. For as much as I like Guy, and not that he doesn't want to have talented players, I think he's comfortable with. Okay, we've got the best we got, and it's all about playing together. And if all guys pulling together and rowing together, and we'll be good. And that's great. And that's endearing and that's wonderful. And they've had the three largest Saturday night crowds the past 3 Saturdays they've been home. But at some point, the Jimmies and the Joes, if they're better than your Jimmies and Joes, it probably does matter. So that's the thing that I don't know. And I've just never had that conversation or had the opportunity to have that conversation of, hey, this mentality of if we all work together, does it prevent you from getting 7 NHL draft picks on your roster? Because you don't want the stars, you want the right people that fit your culture and blah, blah, blah. And then you're struggling if you're struggling. So I think that for me is the elephant in the room more so than who you have. Is that mentality probably doesn't change because that's what the coach's mentality and approach is. And it's worked. But when it doesn't work, it
It
doesn't work,
doesn't work.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think that's a fair way to put it. The other thing that makes me anxious is I think about who's Guy Gadowski's boss is, and that's Pat Kraft now with Boston College in particular. Yes, that's a hockey power school, but
Mhm.
because of Jerry York, their situation is very much different. Like they when Kraft, I can't remember the timeline exactly, but Kraft inherits that program, right? Like it's well established, it's well decided, and everybody knows who Boston College is. Even this year, even you look and they just pump out guys the same way Michigan, and geographically that makes sense up there. And I don't know. I don't necessarily 100% buy the geography thing, because recruiting and I think recruiting is different this day and age than it is 20 years ago when college hockey wasn't on TV except for the Frozen Four. Um, Kind of going back to the wrestling conversation, right? Like the Big Ten Network has been a big reason behind that. But I think that's why it's just like Pat Kraft has seen what a good hockey program can look like, and that's why what makes me anxious about it. So I I would I would anticipate, I don't know if anticipate's the right word, that Guy Gadowski's back next year, but I would also not be surprised if he's not, because it's just
Yeah, I think that the AD would add that trepidation for me. I guess, and as I was looking, Penn State, every team in the Big Ten since Notre Dame has joined in 2018, every team except two have won the regular season championship. And one of those two teams is Michigan. So in
right.
that time, we talk about, well, we talk, the coaches and players talk about how great the Big Ten conference is. And it is, and it's balanced and it's tight, and there's no doubt about that. It's hard to win. I asked you before we
Yep.
started, how many national champions from the Big Ten during your lifetime?
During my lifetime,
Yeah.
there's been at least one Ohio State, there's been at least one Minnesota, and there's one Michigan, but there's been no Michigan States, I don't think. and I can't think of a Notre Dame one. And did I miss a school there? I missed a school
Wisconsin.
there. Wisconsin. Has there been there's been a Wisconsin one as well. So
Yeah,
four?
2006. Six, I got told. I got a Michigan State, a Wisconsin, some
Oh, there was a
Minnesotas, and and two Michigans. So
so
six.
all of them have
Ohio, I didn't see Ohio State, but I might have missed it. So six during your lifetime. No Notre Dame,
no Notre Dame. Okay.
Michigan State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan. So
Okay.
not all of them. So yeah, it's great. And there was that year when was it three of the four were from
Yeah,
the Big
right.
Ten
Like
about
it's not
5 years
easy.
ago. So
It's
no, I mean this year BU and BC are having a year, right? Like it's yeah,
but also like I don't know, that's the thing. It's not easy, but you go look at Hockey East, you can kind of like look at the NCHC,
yep.
kind of say the same thing, and it's like maybe this is just the climate, and you have to find your way through that. I do think, I mean, like I said, I don't buy the recruiting thing that much, just because the market or the internet exists essentially. Um, but you do, you look at Michigan primarily, literally the high school that the U.S. developmental team goes to is across the street from the big
Right.
house.
Right.
Minnesota is the true hotbed, particularly the Minneapolis region is the true hotbed of high school hockey in this country. Um,
So here's the thing that would give you pause that
okay.
goes against my argument. Was it last week? Last week, media session for the final road series. One of Coach Gadowsky's answers to something about the program was it was like a minute and a half about well, what a great staff we have, best staff I've ever been associated with, great support for the student athletes, blah blah blah. And there's a part of me, right, that's like, okay, I'm going to save this for the season wrap up, and I get a chance to talk to him. If this is so good, right? If this is so good, why is that on the ice not as good, right? Like it does it
Mm.
reflect it kind of thing, So I'd be disappointed if it was that knee jerk. Like I don't think they're there to merit it yet. But there's lots of other little factors, right? New AD. Do they think they're not going to monetize it more because they're getting the crowds they're getting. Like so they're not going to have
I,
more in attendance. So and when you bottom line it, I don't know that there's a savings or whatever else. But I do think I think you can finish fifth or sixth in this conference and look really competitive at times, and at times they haven't this season,
mhm.
right? So I think that's the difference.
That was
So